nice to see everybody who could make it this afternoon and share your time with us. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to hosting the Alumni Effect speaker series today with Kam Tallman. I'm very excited actually to hear a story. I am the associate dean of one of the associate deans in the Faculty of Education at the University of Regina. And it is really my pleasure and privilege really to be able to host or moderate this session. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 4 lands with a presence on Treaty 6. And these are the territories of the Nahiawak, the Anishinaabe, the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the Métis Nations, the homelands of the Métis Nations. And I'm always reminded about the privilege and responsibilities that we have to be here, part of a diverse group of people in shared lands, and as moving forward, keeping histories in mind and a look to the future. So this is one of the series of the Alumni Effect Speaker Series offered by the University of Regina's Engagement Department. This will be recorded, and it's the reason for this is so that you can go back to it at another time to revisit it, or invite colleagues or friends or guests to watch it through the link that we're going to provide. And I do believe Leah's going to attach that link or put it into the chat for all of us if we want it. Otherwise, you can find it on the website as well, the alumni website. So now it is my great pleasure to welcome and introduce our speaker, Kam. Kam holds a degree. Let me get my notes up here because I won't remember it all. Has 2 degrees, has a bachelor degree from they're both from the University of Regina, I do believe. One is a bachelor degree in education. The other is a master in educational psychology. And Kam has been teaching for almost 2 decades, 17 years, at Regina Public Schools. It is her goal to help young women realize their strengths and to motivate them to use their ability to do great things, to cultivate a really positive attitude and change in their lives. And she's devoted to these young people, helping them uncover their true talents and trying to be, one of the individuals that can help support them and give them a source of encouragement, empower them, equip them, and elevate the next or a younger generation of young women. So thank you, heartfelt thank you, Kam, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this.
As I am as well. Thank you so much. And what we will do is we'll give Kam her opportunity to share her story. And then we expect to have about 50 minutes of Q&A at the end. Throughout, I'm one of these people that has to put my thoughts down right away. So throughout, you'll have access to the chat function to put any questions down that you have for Kam. And we will also open the mics at the end of the session today for you to actually ask your questions live, if that is your preference. We'll just ask you, and I'll remind you at the end, there's a chat function. As I said earlier to this group, I'm still getting used to Teams, which I should be by now, but there's a raise your hand function at the top of the screen. Raise your hand. You can actually do it physically as well, but if you do it with online, then it comes up automatically and I know who asked what first. So if you could use the raise hand function, that would be helpful. I think that's all I have to say before we get started, really. So I'm going to take this opportunity to stop speaking and welcome you, Kam, to take over.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Thanks again for having me. I guess I'll just start by telling you a little bit about myself, my story, my journey, but I am born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm a proud Winston Wolverine graduate. Right after high school, I went straight into the University of Regina. I was fortunate enough to get a soccer scholarship. I grew up playing soccer. It was kind of in my DNA through my dad. But yeah, so I was very fortunate to receive a scholarship to play with the U of R. And when I started at the U of R, I actually started in the faculty of business. And I don't know why, because I've always wanted to be a teacher. If you even look at my high school yearbook, it says future ambition to be a teacher. From a young age, I pretended to play school. My parents would get me chalk. I would write on the walls. So it was always in me that I wanted to be a teacher. But I think when I finished high school, a big thing for me at the forefront of my mind was just kind of, I was very soccer focused. So I thought, you know what? All my friends are going into business. I'll go into business. Sure, why not? So I did 4 years of business admin while playing soccer. And then I was coming up to my 5th year of eligibility. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to be in business. What am I doing? So then I actually transferred into the Faculty of Education because I knew that I've always wanted to be a teacher. And my time on the soccer team was coming to a close as well, because you're allowed 5 years of eligibility. So then I transferred into the Faculty of Ed and I got accepted there. So it was in my 5th year of university that I actually went into the Faculty of Education. And one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's actually crazy. You even saying that I've been teaching for 17 years, it just blows my mind that it's been that long, because it doesn't feel that long to me. But yeah, so proud U of R grad. I played soccer for the Cougars, loved my time there. And then soon after convocating with my Bachelor of Ed degree, I actually got a job right away with Regina Public Schools. And since then, haven't looked back. Like you said, it's been 17 years. In that time of being a teacher, I did take 2 years and step into the role of a high school counselor, because I taught for probably about 10 years. And then after those 10 years, I decided to do my master's in educational psychology. It's something that I always wanted to do. It was kind of always on my heart that I saw myself in the role of a guidance counselor. So I pursued my master's in educational psychology. Wonderful experience. I think as much as I learned a lot about, education and the world of education and coupling it with the world of psychology, I think I also learned a lot about myself in that time frame as well, just with the information that we worked with. But so I continued to teach, and then about a couple of years ago, I was a guidance counselor. I did it for a couple of years. And truth be told, I was honest with my principal as well from the very beginning. I felt in my heart that I was just meant to be a teacher. I missed the classroom so much. I actually think I'm a better counselor as a classroom teacher than in the corporate setting. So I was pulled back into the classroom. So I'm back where I belong, I guess you could say. But also in that time, I did take 1 year away from teaching, and I moved out to Toronto. And in my time in Toronto, I kind of realized that I have this entrepreneurial philanthropy gene in me, and I started a nonprofit organization there called Boot Camps for Change. And I was working at a fitness center while I was in Toronto, and basically what it was just to put on fitness classes for people, but then we would put that money back into youth groups in Toronto. And then eventually what we would do is we would get the vulnerable youth that we were supporting and work to train them to be personal trainers at fitness facilities. So I say that because when I came back to Regina, I realized that was a big part of my identity, was to serve and to give back to community, but also just to really focus on what I can do to help the youth, and to encourage youth and provide opportunity for youth that was outside of this classroom setting. So when I was back in Regina teaching, I started an organization called I Am Her. Her stands for Hopeful, Equipped, and Resilient. And I decided to start this because I was seeing that every new generation of young female that was coming into the classroom, I could see that there was more and more self-doubt, and there was more and more insecurity in just the way that they presented themselves, the self-talk. And we know that our decision-making is rooted in our self-worth. And I was seeing just an incredible amount of self-doubt in these young girls. So I decided, well, you know what? Why don't we just get all these girls in one room and let's just talk about the things that matter most and the things that are causing stress, and simply just the hope of being just a source of encouragement. That's kind of where it started, was I just wanted to be a source of encouragement for the young women, for the young girls in our community. HER stands for hopeful, equipped, and resilient. The bedrock of the organization is hope. And the second component, I wanted these girls to know that, you know, they tend to question themselves so much, but just to always know and trust your talent, to believe in yourself, to know that you have all the right talents and skills to pursue the dreams that you want to pursue, that you are indeed equipped. And then the last one, the R, standing for resilience. If I was the CEO of all the school boards, I would say that there should be a class on resilience alone, just to build that muscle of resilience, because we all know that we're going to face adversity in life and our resiliency is going to be tested. But I truthfully think that if you can tap into showing resiliency, it could be the difference. It could be the difference in your life. So that's kind of where HER started, was just to be that source of encouragement and just to like talk to these girls about resiliency. And just to kind of remind the girls that they have purpose, and purpose oftentimes gives us perspective as well. I think nowadays sometimes youth just feel so overwhelmed and so lost in this big bad world. But I think it's important to remind that each of them have a unique purpose. And then in turn, the hope is that will kind of provide them with some sort of perspective. But and then along the line with HER starting, I actually had the incredible opportunity of working with Dr. Timmons way back in 2019. And we actually hosted the first ever Young Leaders Forum. I know that U of R does an incredible job with the Inspiring Women's Forum, but we did a Young Leaders Forum. I would love to bring it back if anybody is willing or wanting to work with me on that. But we filled the Connexa Center with 2,000 high school aged females from across the city. And it was incredible. And I don't think I would have had that opportunity had I not started HER, and had I not, you know, kind of had HER in and around the schools, because we were doing a lot of school workshops. Then unfortunately COVID hit and our momentum slowed down a bit. But yeah, so I was able to work with Dr. Timmons on that. And then now with that, I've kind of realized that this is kind of what I want to focus on with young kids, is just to nurture our community. So I was given the opportunity to teach a leadership class at the school that I'm currently teaching at. And it is a dream class. It is truly my dream job. The focus of this leadership class is it's a bunch of grade 11 and 12 students. And I know that the topic of leadership is so grand, but basically what I'm trying to teach these grade 11 and 12 students is all about servant leadership. Because I believe that if you think about any good leaders in your life or who you deem to be a good leader, I bet you they're good leaders because they serve. They lead by serving. So this leadership class is based around servant leadership. We're actually heading into putting on a really big fundraiser at the school right now, where all the money is going to go towards Souls Harbor Rescue Mission. But I end with that because I think everything that I've done has kind of been this domino effect into one is building off the other. But there's this common theme about wanting to just teach this younger generation how to nurture and care for our community, for themselves, but also more importantly, just to always know that to always err on the side of hope.
Super. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kam. You're speaking to my soul. Everything you're saying touches me. So thank you so much. I have a bunch of questions, and I have some, planned questions, which I will ask now. And just keeping in mind, I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure I leave time for other people to have questions as well. But I'll start with my first question. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. And my first question will be, what have you noticed are some of the biggest challenges that young women face today compared to when you first started teaching? So, 17, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that part of the reason also why I started her was that I think that there's this inner dialogue. There's been a big shift in this inner dialogue, and I think that it's a lot of scary stories are told. And what I think we need to try to do is to teach these kids and these youth, just how to fix that inner dialogue. Because I think if we listen to it, we could fall into a really, really big trap or a really, really big hole. And I think there's times to listen to it, but I would say that that is probably one of the biggest things is the amount of doubt that we see in youth. And I know that there are so many external factors. I often say, when we were growing up, it was a playground out there, but I think nowadays, youth growing up, it's a jungle. There's so many things, there's so much terrain that they're trying to have to filter through. But I think that'd be one of the biggest things is just the level of insecurity or questioning their self-worth and the amount of negative inner dialogue that exists. I think that would probably be the biggest thing I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. That's intriguing. Thanks. Yeah, and you've got the history, so you can see that change through time. I love your metaphor with playground and jungle there. I can totally see it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Another question I have is if you could leave every young woman with just one message, you probably have lots, but if it's one, what would you choose?
Yeah, it's so hard to just pick one. I think I would just have to say it's kind of been this common theme of what I've been saying throughout this conversation so far, but and it's the premise on which her was created, but hope.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That in life we're going to face so much uncertainty. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but I think you have one of two choices. I think you can either have no hope or you can have hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we can just teach these young women to always err on the side of hope. Also too, like it's hard because I think we're guilty of this too, that instant gratification. We want to see things here and now, but I also think it's really important to understand that you don't need to see something immediately to trust it implicitly. Like you don't need to see, like if you want something, you don't need to see it happen right now. I think that there's a really beautiful thing between the here and the there. That's that that uncertain space that I think that we feel really uncomfortable with at times, or that we want to run away from, or we want to push it away. I think that if we can teach ourselves and this younger generation to just sit in that space, that it's okay to be in that space between the here and the there, because there's a lot of growth that can happen in that space. I truly believe that that's actually where miracles start to form, is in that space. So if we can teach kids, okay, you have this dream, you have this goal, yes, that's incredible, but until you get there, that foreign ground that you're in, be comfortable in it, because I think that that's where maybe the most growth will happen. But then also on that, I think that patience comes into play. I think that patience is the proof of hope. So we need to also learn and understand that when we're in this space of the here and there, it's going to require patience. But I promise you, if you see it through, when you get to the there, you will look back and you will be so proud of your growth and the confidence that you built, because I think it's in that space, like I said before, that our growth truly happens.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. I love the way you say that. Yeah, it's key. That's like you say, that's the place where hope is, and the patience piece is so much, yeah, a proof of that. Thank you so much. um the next question I'd like to ask is, you've been a teacher for 17 years. What I think we got a bit of a sense from what you've already presented, but what originally it was in you. You're using chalk on the walls and things like that. But what made you, you realized business was not your thing? What made you move to education? What actually brought you, inspired you to go into education ultimately?
Yeah, I think, and when I shared the story earlier, I think I went into business just because, my friends were going into business. All I really cared about was soccer. I was like, okay, sure, I'll have class with my friends. But I mean, if you were to have my parents and my brother on this call, they would actually also attest to the fact that I think I was just born to be a teacher. I don't know. I don't know what it is in me. I don't know. I wish I could, give you this incredible answer as to why I became a teacher, but I just think I have always, from as long as I can remember, have wanted to be a teacher. I truthfully cannot imagine doing a different job. So I think it was meant for me. I love my job. 17 years in, I'm proud to say that I genuinely love my job. The kids keep me young too, which is a benefit of that. But yeah, like I said, I'd be writing with chalk on the walls. It was just something in me. I think that I was just pulled. It was part of God's plan for me, I guess, to be in a classroom.
When I hear you speak, I can see that. It's just, there's so much, passion and commitment there. I could totally see that. It's in your blood. It's from the beginning. And I will also add, that to me, it seems like it's been, everything's been part of your journey. Like even that business piece that goes into you creating, I Am Her, and what you did in Toronto and all those pieces. So they're all contributing to who you are and how you're giving back. It's beautiful. I love it. Thank you. I have another question, and that is, how do you think you're using your educational psychology training, in your classroom, in your teaching, in the I Am Her space?
hmm I think when it comes to the classroom, through my through doing my master's, I learned a lot more about different learning styles, specifically different learning needs that maybe I didn't spend enough time in the first, half of my career. So through those classes, I was able to learn a lot more about that. And also, understanding how each learner is such a unique learner. So that was kind of the first introduction. Obviously, over the course of time, you dive more into it. But I would say that that'd be a big one. But also, and I don't think you need your master's in educational psychology to know this, but just to really focus on the well-being of the student. Um, we're there to, curricular is important, absolutely, but I also think that before curricular content, it's our goal is to make sure that these students feel safe and secure, that they feel loved, and then also, again, just to be that source of encouragement for them while they're in our classroom for those 10 months.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like what you said earlier about, you're feeling like you're almost doing your best counseling as a teacher. That's got brought you back into it as a teacher. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you. Those are my sort of official questions. I'd like to see if there's any, but there's nothing in the chat right now. I am more than happy to welcome questions. Okay, Alexis, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question. But first, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, Kam. This is such a full circle moment for me, since I was one of your students about 10 years ago. And like as a young woman in grade 9, struggling to figure things out at the time, I still remember lessons that you taught, especially around confidence and self-belief and the power of showing up as your true self. So it really means a lot to be here today. And in my role as into university as an adult, not just calling you Miss Bahia anymore, but being able to call you Kam as a full adult now that you helped train me to be here. So I just wanted to say that I think your journey and passion is so inspiring. So I'm wondering if any of us in the audience wanted to support the kind of work that you do, what is one step today that we could take to do that?
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. It's funny, like Alexis said, full circle moment for sure. I still remember Alexis as my student. Grade 9, there was a group of these girls that wrote me a letter, and I still have that letter. So what an incredible, you're right, full circle moment. Thanks for those kind words. How to support, I guess, we as for her, I am her, we do a her scholarship every June for two graduating students that are pursuing post-secondary education at the U of R that may not, where they might need some financial support. And with that, we do look for donations from people, or just any way that they can help support these individuals who are wanting to pursue post-secondary education. So looking for support that way is the best way, I would say.
And are you able to share us a link or anything that we can figure that out, or is it just I am her at your website?
Absolutely. I can send a link to you, and when you send this chat, or when you send this video, you can put it in there as well. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, awesome.
Yes, lovely. I perused the thanks, Alexis, for your question. That was your support and the question. Actually, very good. Both of them, both of those pieces are appreciated. And it's lovely for me to hear, be an outsider, hearing this connection that you two have, and the circle and the journey. I did peruse the website, and so it is very accessible. I noticed your gray sweatshirts. Are they going to be back in anytime soon or not?
Oh, I hope so. That was an incredible partnership we did with Brunette the Label. So maybe down the road, but yeah, I know that was a dream come true, that in itself.
Lovely. Anyway, we can bring on support, I'm in favor of. Beautiful. Thank you. Any other questions from our audience here? Thoughts, questions, comments? Yes, Jennifer, please.
Hi, Kam. Thanks so much for sharing all of your information today. One of the things I wanted to ask about was, we all know how much social media has affected especially young people, especially sort of that teenage demographic. And what is the way that you, help your students to kind of mitigate that, and to mitigate the challenges around that, and to understand how, what we see isn't necessarily what's actually going on in folks' lives? Because I know that even for adults, it's quite difficult to navigate that. So especially when they're, moving up through high school and early adulthood and that kind of thing.
Yeah, great question, because I think that is a huge component. I'd said earlier the reference of life being a jungle out there, and I think it is primarily due to social media and these apps. And this year was the first year where students weren't allowed to use cell phones in schools, which has been a huge help. But yeah, I think to your question, Jen, like, it's so hard to, it's such a beast, right? And it's so hard to, excuse me, to compete with it. But I think as a teacher, I try to make students just aware of, like you said, Jen, is that what you're seeing isn't real. Like, when trying to make it relevant to them is when you guys post, what are you posting, right? Like, we hear this all the time, it's the highlights, not the lowlights, but what they're seeing isn't real. But also just to be really cautious of who they're following, to maybe on a regular basis, go through all of their followers, all of the people that are following them, and just to go through them again, and just to make sure, like, is this person serving a purpose in my life? Why am I following them? What value are they bringing into my life? And if you can't really answer those questions in a positive way, then maybe it's you don't follow them, or you remove them from your feed. So that's one. But the second thing too is, I had my students do this experiment in class one day, was I had them check how many notifications they were getting over a class period. So I teach high school, class is 61 minutes long, and I'm not joking, there were between a class of 30 students, there were thousands of notifications. So also for them to be cautious, like, yes, we're not allowed phones in school, and that's great, but when you're home and every time a notification goes on, you're held captive to your phone, and how much time that it's taking. I had one student document the amount of time they spent on Snapchat, and over the course of the week, they lost 1 full day. It was like 26 hours. And I thought, that is you've now gone down to 6 days a week instead of 7. So just trying to make it more realistic, and like you're losing time, but also asking them, how are you benefiting from this? What value is it bringing? Because don't get me wrong, there are tons of great there's tons of great, I look at like cooking. I find recipes from Instagram. There's so many things that you can pull from it, but just to make them aware of, who am I following? Why? What value do they bring? What am I learning? But more importantly, how is this affecting me? When I look at their stuff, when I watch their stuff, do I leave feeling better or worse? And just to really take time to evaluate that. Now, we grew up in a generation where we didn't have social media, so we kind of know best of both worlds. These kids, all they really know is social media and social media apps. So we also have to understand that it's just the world that they know. But I think just continuing to educate kids and just making them aware of the pros and cons of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for the question. Great question. And thank you for that fulsome response, Kam. Yes, it means, I love your perspective of how it is the world right now. This is the world we're living in. Let's work with that. Yeah, super. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I do have a question in the chat, and that is how did you and your students cope with lockdown during the pandemic?
Oh, not well.
Oh, I can't blame you.
It was such a weird time. It's hard to believe that was 5 years ago, right? But you managed. It actually almost seems like a blur to even think about, but we were teaching online, we were checking in with kids, but yeah, how do they handle it? The best that I guess anybody could. I think that there were a lot of adaptations made, a lot of modifications made, making sure that kids are getting the credits and the marks that are owed to them. But I guess I just hope that we never have to go through that again. I think it kind of changed the whole world of education. You would kind of see it even to date, how it affected younger generations. But yeah, I'm really good answer for that, other than I don't think we did well. I personally didn't.
You did the best you could, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
You all did. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. We only have a few more minutes. If there's no more questions from the floor, I'll ask one. Which I'm thinking might be a nice, depending on how you answer it, but anyway, nice way to sort of wrap things up. I always think of how you're giving so much, and I'm sure you're having an incredible impact both in your teaching and the I Am Her. Are there any sort of stories or heartwarming, or any stories that jump out to you as how you've contributed to these young women's lives?
I guess what we just heard earlier from Alexis. Yeah. I mean, that is probably that's what you hope for, right? As a teacher, you hope that you would cross paths with a student that you taught 10 years ago, I think Alexis said, and here we are working together. And just the encouraging words that she shared, truly, that's your goal. That's my mission, not even just as a teacher, but as a human being, right? And I think that a lot of my teaching and I Am Her, and even I'm working with the U of R Cougars with a mentorship program with the girls soccer team there as well. But it all comes down to just, being that source of encouragement for these young girls, and just reminding them again, like I said, just to always have hope, in those times of uncertainty. I promise you it will get better, and just to err on the side of hope. So I think just Alexa sharing earlier, I think that'd be the epitome of what your goal is. You can say that if I left a mark on just one student, and she was able to share minutes ago, I can rest a happy and complete woman. But there is something that I shared. I don't know if we have time for this. How are we with time?
You've still got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Just recently, also in my classroom, I shared this story. It's this leadership class that I teach, again, based on servant leadership. And I shared this story with them that there was a prof and a student, and a student walked into her final exam, and she was looking through her exam, and she wrote it, and then she came to the last question. And the last question on the exam was, what's the name of the lady that cleans our classroom? So the student's like, surely this isn't for marks. Like, this must be a joke, a bonus question, whatever. She's like, I have no idea, not going to answer it. She walks down, she hands in her exam to the professor, and she just says, like, is that last question for marks? And the professor says, absolutely it is. What's her name? And turns out that the woman's name is Dorothy. But the whole point of the story is that, and this is one thing as well that's important to me, and then we talk about, you know, these relationships like Alexis and myself, but every relationship that you have, we need to be intentional. We need to approach it with care and concern and kindness. And it's not just these relationships that are you know, right in front of us, but it's also these relationships that are maybe like on the back end as well, or, you know, how many degrees of separation. So I shared this story with my grade 11 and 12 students, and I said to them at the beginning of the semester, your mission this semester is to find your Dorothy. I don't know who it is, but identify who your Dorothy is and work on that relationship. Just the other day before Easter break, I had a student come up to me and say, I met my Dorothy. I introduced myself to my Dorothy. I brought my Dorothy a coffee. And I thought, that is it. That is it right there. That this young student identified who her Dorothy in her life is, someone that she doesn't really talk to, but someone that she is still in her life in some capacity. But she made a point to be intentional and be kind and grow and nurture that relationship. And the fact that it's a class of 34 students, the fact that one of them was able to identify their Dorothy and actually, what's the word, like follow through with the exercise, again, that is mission accomplished for me. So
Absolutely beautiful. That's what a brilliant way I'll wrap it up there, but what a brilliant way to end. And to me, that's so beautiful in the instant, but also that student will carry it forward in their lives. So, you know, there's a changed person now. So I thank you, you know what, for what you're doing. I know it's time to wrap up, but I can't thank you enough. And again, I said this earlier, sort of informally, but I'm glad my dean couldn't make it so that I could make it and be present. So thank you. And thank you everybody to our audit. A big thank you to our audience as well. Some great questions. And I feel like there's a little community here. So thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, I thank you for what you've given today and what you have shared and everybody's part in this conversation. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.